Hello, and welcome back to Sober Now. I'm Jim LaPierre. Today, I want to talk about emotional maturity and the process of growing up in recovery. I often meet with folks for the first time, and intuitively, I get this sense of what they're hiding and of who they are on the inside. Outwardly, we're responsible people, we're often very successful people. It's a crude expression, but we look like people who have our shit together. And on the inside, what I see are sad and scared little boys and girls because that is a product of our upbringing. It's a product of surviving trauma. It's a product of all the places that addiction took us. So, in a very real sense, as we learn and grow and heal through the course of recovery, we're growing up, we're gaining emotional maturity. So the way that I usually start this conversation with people is I'll ask them how old they are. I'll ask them how old they feel, and then finally I'll ask how old do you feel when you're afraid. When it comes to chronological age, it's very strange to me because we live in a culture that assigns a lot of meaning to age. So for example, at 29 you're a kid, but at 30 you're an adult who should have their stuff together. If you have a midlife crisis as an American, that's usually somewhere around 40, 45. But conversely, if you're middle aged in our culture, then you're somewhere between 50 and 55, which is only valid if you're going to live to be over 100. So, age is this kind of odd thing that we place a great deal of meaning upon. And what's really interesting to me is that the older a person is chronologically, the more they tend to use that as a basis for shaming themselves. So people say to me all the time, I'm 45, I'm 50, I'm 55, I'm 60, and I still don't have my shit together. And I usually quote Marilyn Gray on that. She said, nobody ever has it all together. That's like trying to eat once and for all. So, one of the many ways in which we critique ourselves and reject ourselves is by virtue of our chronological age. The age that we feel is usually a mixed bag. A lot of us feel older than we are chronologically in many senses because, in truth, we were never free to be kids. We were saddled with a lot of responsibilities at a very young age when we clearly weren't prepared for those. A lot of us have worked too long, too hard, both in the workplace and domestically, and so our bodies feel a lot older to us than our chronological age. And then how old we feel when we're afraid or when we're overwhelmed is really usually a strong indicator of where it was that we kind of shut down through the course of our development internally. Now, again, externally, maybe we took on great responsibilities. Maybe we became educated or excelled in the workplace, or maybe we're people who have done a great deal to serve others. But what remains is what Freud called the inner child. And this concept of the id, the part of us that just feels and just struggles to maintain control of self, to kind of regulate our emotions and our behavior. So this is a tall order, and one of the biggest things that we're learning, especially in the first couple of years of recovery, is how to even identify our emotions, how to express them, and how to cope with them. And as we do this, we gain emotional maturity because we have a greater understanding of what our experience is. We're able to communicate it more effectively, and then we're able to invest in a lot more vulnerability by asking for what we need, asking for what we want, expressing how it is that we feel. This tends to yield not only more fulfilling undertakings, experiences, but also vastly more satisfying relationships, particularly when what we're really searching for is intimacy. Vulnerability is the key ingredient to intimacy. It's what makes so many things possible. And it eliminates a lot of the miscommunication and misunderstandings that we tend to have, especially when we're relating to other people in recovery. So, emotional maturity is something that I don't hear talked about a lot. I think it takes a lot of courage just to admit that there's still, in many senses, some things that are lacking for you. Usually, people just describe to me a sense of emptiness, a sense that something is missing. A lot of us find that as we rebuild our lives, and as we come to a greater understanding of ourselves, we can see with more clarity what our past has been, what the foundation of our life has been, and we can recognize a lot of mistakes that we've made along the way. The biggest one really is looking to our romantic partners to help fill some of those emptinesses, some of those things that really should have been met, ideally by caregivers, by a mom and a dad, by people who would help us to feel secure in ourselves, help us to feel valued and safe and loved. Those are wonderful things. They're important things. They're the birthright of every child. And I think that the hardest message that I sometimes give to people in recovery is you need a lot more people in your life. You need a lot more support. Not just people that are there when you need them. Trust me, you need them all the time. The types of needs that should have been met early in our life are not ones that a romantic partner can meet. Their chosen family can meet those, absolutely. Close friends and people that maybe we see them as authority figures, whether they're sponsors or counselors or just folks that are maybe further along in the journey than we are. Allowing those folks to invest in us really will yield benefits all the way around, but particularly in terms of our emotional sense of self and the degree to which we have control of self in a really healthy way. So I hope you'll spend some time considering those themes and maybe doing a little bit of journaling on them. I hope that you'll write to me, Jim@sobernow.com. I always love getting your questions and suggestions for topics. I hope that you'll give a like to the video and share it with friends and family so that we can expand this conversation and grow this collection of wonderful people in recovery. Thank you so much.